Did you know, David, that in Dallas there was a confidence building exercise with drag queens that is now considered grooming, and it's such a massive crisis. I said on Twitter, it's like taking your kid to a Broadway show. It's just costumes and dancing.
It's so bad it has people moving to Texas to avoid it.
I mean, like now they're literally going to try. I mean, what was it? The state senator that introduced, or state rep introduced
Brian
legislation to ban kids from drag shows. They are really accelerating this anti-trans boogeyman stuff throughout the country, but particularly in Texas.
And it's very scary. And just, because people have made this point a lot, it's horrifying how quickly they are willing to move on that and not on, the gun issue. I just wanted to note that, they called a special investigative committee in Texas on the gun issue, which has only subpoena power. It's not a legislative session or anything like that, which means that even best case scenario, they want to do something. We won't get legislation on that till probably next summer, a whole year from now. But I just bring that up to show the difference in how willing that side is to gum up culture war stuff. I mean, I can't sit here and act offended about a drag show. I think it's absolutely ridiculous and performative, and I wish it could just be something where we could point at how prudish and weird conservatives are, but it has serious consequences, as folks probably know. Trigger warning, I'm talking about suicide here, but a young trans person committed suicide here in Texas because the government is now investigating families and is threatening to rip them away from their families. I mean, absolutely horrific. And I just want to say, as as a Texan and somebody who grew up here, I get frustrated sometimes when you see people like the Tim Pools and the Rubens, and they always try to paint this picture of Texas and what Texas is like, right? And say, oh, look, everybody's moving to this place. Because it's one, the picture they paint of Texas is always really distorted. It's always funny that they're not from here or live here. And two, it really scares me because the only kind of people who actually are going to be motivated by a Pool or a Rubin type to move here and actually do it are some of the worst people who I want as far away from this state as possible. I just want to share, my experience. I grew up when I was a kid, my mom and I and my little brother and sister, we went and we moved in with my aunt who was in the lesbian community here. So I grew up in the gay and LGBTQ community here in Texas. And that is as much Texas as anything else to me. Right. And it's always been here and it always will. And these kind of hate-filled people who are trying to use culture war for their own political gain and trying to, work up some of the most psychotic and dangerous people in this society against other human beings, have blood on their hands, and they need to be opposed at every single level. It's a part of, that culture is a part of the culture here as much as it is everywhere else. I mean, the gay community, the LGBTQ community has always been here and it always will. And it really, really infuriates me when I see these kind of bigots try to act like this is some kind of invasion, right? Or something that's being brought in here instead of something that comes from us.
And from a national level, these pundits who fetishize Texas, I mean, that's the thing that that I can't speak for you, but that would bug me because it's it completely, I mean, it's the one of the three biggest countries in the state in terms of influence and size. I'm forgetting in terms of population, that's probably California, but Texas in size is massive.
Well, you're speaking my Texas nationals there.
Yeah.
Texas as a country.
Oh, did I say country?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about seceding today on the show. But I mean, that erases many struggles. It also often erases a vibrant and large Latino population in Texas as well, in order to uphold some sort of myth of Republican cowboys that they want to use to largely undercut social programs on a national level.
To be fair, when it comes to Tejanos and Latinos in Texas too, I think liberals do a pretty good job of ignoring them as well.
Yes,
just to be
point.
fair, but Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. And I wanted to note, just on that kind of fantasy that we get from those kind of right YouTuber characters or whatever, it's very funny when they're talking about this moment, they never really mention that it's in Dallas. They sort of just sort of dance around it because it sort of, destroys the world that they're trying to create in people's heads. But yeah, I mean, I think going back to all of these issues that we've been talking about today, I think this is why it's not the number one issue, but it's something that we take very seriously at Left Reckoning. Really like taking hold of your history becomes really important because what they're trying to do, there is a line, in my opinion, between the Republicans trying to wage war on history in Texas, basically trying to make it so public universities can't teach like real history, and all of these kind of things. Speakers are being challenged by like the GOP in Texas and said, "Oh, we're going to pull funding for that kind of stuff." There's a direct thread to that, to all of the other things that we're seeing, from the fake gummed up created controversy about trans rights in Texas, to the gun issue. It all comes from this kind of fantasy of what Texas was that is created today by a purposeful right-wing movement. And it's really, really dangerous, and it's something that's worth pushing up. And if people want more of that, feel free to check out Left Reckoning, because we tell that history a lot. But it's very, very worrying, because it is erasure of people, and it emboldens some of the most dangerous folks in our community, which every community has bigots out there. But this kind of tacit wink that you get from the Texas GOP when they're saying, yeah, we're going to tattle on your neighbors. If you think that your neighbor has a trans kid, call the state, and we're going to come and get involved and harass them. I mean, that's complicit. That's being absolutely complicit in this hate mongering that's going on.
And it's already happening. Like, I'll put this article up here, Bradley, WFLA. But this is this trans child attempted suicide because they were reported that had a mental health scare, and because they were going through transition, were reported to the state, and the state got involved. Like, this is state harassment of kids immediately. I mean, it's like this wasn't even you couldn't be said of like a byproduct of this ever. This is exactly what this was always going to lead to. You have kids who transition, and like, we should just, I want to spell out the puberty blocker thing too, because we have kids who socially transition, and then all of a sudden you're going to go through puberty, and puberty blockers are very important for those kids who have already transitioned into their preferred gender, because what happens if you can't get those puberty blockers? You go through puberty into a body that you don't want. So of course this is going to lead to suicides. Of course it's going to.
Of course. And I mean, this is a part of like a larger story of what's happening in Texas about families of trans teens basically getting together with the ACLU and Lambda Legal. They're filing a lawsuit on behalf of 3 families, and I think other families are joining this because they are being investigated, and this isn't just like one-offs. There are multiple families that aren't included already in this suit by the government of Texas for providing gender-affirming care to their kids. I mean, and this is going to be a large legal fight, I think. They're also the lawsuit's also representing, I believe, a large LGBTQ organization within Texas, which has also been targeted.
According to the lawsuit, the minor was admitted to a local hospital and referred to an outpatient psychiatric facility. Staff learned that he had been prescribed hormone therapy for treatment of gender dysphoria, and according to the lawsuit, told him and his mother that the family might be reported for child abuse because of Abbott's letter and DFPS's new rule. Less than a week after the minor was discharged from the facility, the lawsuit says a child welfare investigator arrived at the family's home. I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely, extremely worrying. And, it's, I think people who were, when it was just, we care about the integrity of women's sports, it's been amazing how quickly it's moved over to like, we're going to come for the life of children. Right. I mean, it's like that moved extremely fast. And I think that the Republicans think that they have a winning ticket on, stoking up fears, not just about, trans folks too, but just general homophobia. And it's something that it is pretty shocking to see how quickly things can regress, It's thought that we had sort of turned a corner on this, and it's very quickly coming back, to feeling like it's the early 2000s again.
Oh, yeah.
When we're talking about these issues.
That Blaze TV girl who went into that.
We played yesterday.
Posted a picture that we played yesterday. When she posted those images of the drag show, she called it demonic.
Yeah.
Like, that's how retrograde this mindset is. And that's not her being poetic.
No, that's what this is. It is a fundamentalist Christian movement that is well coordinated and politically expedient for someone like Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton in Texas, but also, of course, Ron DeSantis in Florida and other governors across the country, less high profile, because finding someone to demonize is helpful for them. And I think that they saw the trans issue, the existence of trans people, which freaks out a certain section of the country who are not used to it as they were used to gay people, which has become more normalized in culture over the past few decades. They saw that as a way to reverse course. It was an opening to demonize trans people and thus broaden the scope and also begin to demonize gay people as well. And it's just like Christian fascism laundered through pearl clutching about, women swimming or drag shows in Texas. That's really what it is.
And, I take this extremely seriously, and I'm going to, point out, the failures of the Democrats on this, not because I think it's like doing both sidesism, but because this is the real threat, right? So you see like this kind of real, like new moral panic about, gay people and trans people. And, that works up a certain group of people and might be maybe slightly attractive to a larger group of people, but it's not like their number one thing. Right, their number one issue. And the only reason that this stuff is like allowed to thrive and be viable for the Republican Party is if the left and the Democratic Party in particular is sort of failing at creating a positive option that like people, like people like who might be motivated to vote for Republican because they're very worked up about something their pastor told them. I think it's a much easier case to say, well, we need Medicare for all, $15 an hour, and just like winning those kind of fights so that this kind of cheap culture war stuff that the Republican Party tries to play, just like it doesn't have the sway or the power to overcome something like that. And
well,
when
there's a vacuum, right? And so it's being filled by that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Didn't mean to cut you off. Go on.
No. I mean, that's exactly it. It's just like, this stuff is dangerous and it's worrying, and we have to oppose it directly. But also remember that, as you said, like this comes out of a political vacuum where the Republicans, they don't have very much to offer people who don't make $500,000 plus a year, right? In like actual material terms. So they try to find these kind of things that they think can like work up a segment of the population, hope that will carry them to victory. And, it just should be a slam dunk to be able to beat them on actual things that help people out in their everyday life. And that will squash, most of not the entire existence of like bigotry and homophobia in society, but the system that empowers Republicans to utilize this and legislate on it.
David Griscom of Left Reckoning. Thanks so much for being here today, David. Everyone check out Left Reckoning with Matt and David here. It's great stuff.
Yeah. Patreon.com/Left Reckoning. We are going to be doing a think tank for all of our patrons, so get your questions in this afternoon.
All right. Yeah. Boom.
Well, thanks so much, everybody. Hope to see you soon.
See you soon. Have a great weekend.
See you, David.